This is Attorney Gerald Griggs of Justicefighter.
I don't think they ready for you, Attorney Griggs.
Justicefighter.
What's going on, guys? Attorney Gerald Griggs. We're here on the Justicefighter Podcast on Justice Media Network, and I am super excited. I know I say that every time, but I am truly super excited for this interview. Shermela Williams, she's running for judge in Fulton County, and I want to bring her directly to you so we can have the real conversations about what being balanced on the bench looks like and what fairness in a courtroom looks like. So, Shermela, introduce yourself to the people.
So first and foremost, Attorney Griggs, thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it and all of your support. So balance on the bench, let's talk about that. What that means is making sure we have a judiciary that is well-rounded, a judiciary that is not only in touch and in tune and engaged with the community, but also has the academic background and the professional background to be balanced on the bench. So just by way of my background, I've been a prosecutor. Actually had cases with you.
Yes, we did.
So I think you think I was fair.
You were. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the Justicefighter Podcast. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I was a prosecutor for almost 10 years. I've also done some criminal defense work. Mm-hmm. Currently, I am a civil attorney, so I handle both plaintiffs and civil defense work, so both sides of the V in the civil world. Now, in addition to that, I've done family law and handled both sides of family law. So I've handled cases where fathers were fighting for their kids and rights to see their kids. I've handled divorces. I've handled cases where mothers were fighting for their kids. I've handled child support cases, so I've handled both sides of the V in family law cases also. So with that being said, there is not the type of case that would come before the Fulton County Superior Court that I have not handled. And I think that gives me the opportunity and the experience, rather, to be unbiased, to be able to look at a situation and understand that the facts are not all that go into making the decision.
That's great. And so there are 22 judges, correct?
20
judges.
20 on the Fulton Superior Court.
20 on the Fulton Superior Court bench. And you are currently running for which division?
For the division currently held by Judge Rebecca Reeder.
Okay. And so has it always been a dream to be a judge, or was this something that you saw as a means to an end to provide justice at a higher level?
So both, actually. It started off when I was 7. I am that nerd who's always wanted to be a lawyer, always wanted to be a judge. And it started with the death of my father. My father was murdered when I was 7. And so I was introduced to the criminal justice system at a very early age by way of being a victim of gun violence, mm-hmm. and unnecessary gun violence, certainly. So that was what started my desire to want to be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And in my father's murder, his murderer was never, ever prosecuted. Mm. And so with that being said, I just always felt there was just something inherently unfair about how my father's case was handled. And it left me feeling a void. And so, like in my personal statement for law school, I specifically wrote that I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless, the eyes for the blind, and the strength for the weak. So part of that is what I have fashioned my career on, mm-hmm. the entirety of my career. Now, again, from an idealistic perspective at 7, mm-hmm. that's what started it. But as I got to grow in the system and worked in the system, what I also realized was that next to the prosecutors, the judges have the most power in the system.
Exactly right.
Prosecutors have the most power because they're the ones who decide what cases come before the court and what cases do not come before the court. But second to that is the judge, because the judge has a greater impact on the community, in my opinion, because they're the ones who decide the sentencing when we're talking about criminal cases, when you're talking about civil or criminal or even family law cases, calling balls and strikes during trials, which is why it's important to have a judge who has extensive trial experience like you, like myself, people who've tried cases, know what it's like to be in there and be able to rule on objections as they're coming about, rule on evidentiary issues as they're coming about, because we've done it, because mm-hmm. we've done it and experienced it.
And I think most people don't fully understand the true power of Superior Court judges. So right. Could you kind of outline what a Superior Court judge does in the state of Georgia?
Absolutely. And more than just a Superior Court judge, I'm going to go specifically to Fulton Superior Court.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because they also have the responsibility of handling any case where the governor gets sued, no matter where in the state that case arises. So even when we think about in 2016, when there was the allegation of the government or people closing voting precincts early.
We'll just say it. We'll be real clear. The suppressor in chief, preventing people from having access to the franchise. This is the Justicefighter Podcast, so I will call balls and strikes and call it straight down the middle, the suppressor in chief. But go ahead.
So those cases, no matter in what county that was happening, those cases had to be filed in Fulton County Superior Court. And so with that being said, the Superior Court of Fulton County has responsibilities and has impacts that go far beyond just Fulton County. Okay. But from a specific perspective, in addition to those types of cases, the Fulton County Superior Court handles all felony criminal cases that happen in Fulton County. Civil cases. For instance, one of the things that people may not know is MARTA, by law, can only be sued in Fulton County unless there are some other things going on. But for the most part, all MARTA cases have to be brought in Fulton County Superior Court. But the Fulton County Superior Court, of course, also handles family law cases and civil cases, like I said. So family law, felony criminal cases, civil law.
And so I know a lot of people, are consumed with what's going on at the top of the ticket and miss the down ballot races, but kind of explain even more and build out more why it's important for people to vote in the down ballot races, particularly the races for Georgia, considering that judges are elected.
Oh, my goodness. It is critically important. So judicial races are some of the least voted in elections, period. Part of that is they're at the bottom of the ballot. And so a lot of times people think, oh, judicial races, that doesn't matter. And I tell people whenever I get the opportunity to speak to citizens, understand that the time to care about who your judges are is on election day. It is not when your family member, loved one, friend, or even you come before the judge. At that point, it's too late to care about who the judges are. But judges have an immense impact on our everyday lives, and we don't even know about it. They decide who gets in, who goes out. They decide certain decisions, certain decisions that a judge makes. When they go up on appeal, they sometimes become law. Judges are the ones who, all of these statutes and laws and bills that are being put in place, judges are the ones who are interpreting those things when they come before the court to give them meat, so to speak, for our everyday usage of those things. And so with that being said, it is critically important that we care about and that we take an interest in who our judges are now. Election time. Election day, May 19th, 2020.
And I definitely want you to drill down on that. Election day for the judicial nonpartisan races are
May 19th, 2020.
2020. And so let's talk about your matriculation through law school and into the practice. You're a native Atlantan. That's rare.
I am. And on top of that, you know what's even rarer?
What's that?
I am a Crawford Long baby. I'm not a Grady baby.
Well, again, real Atlantans are born on Peachtree. So as a Piedmont baby,
amen.
I say that all the time. I was born on Peachtree, not off Peachtree. Now, my dad and my granddad were born at Grady, and my uncle and my aunt, everybody else was born at Grady. I was born at Piedmont. So that's true ATL. Then we're born on Peachtree.
We get our Atlanta card taken because we are not Grady babies. Like whenever I say I'm from Atlanta, born and raised, but I was born at Crawford Long, people go, "You're not really from Atlanta." Yes, I am.
And see, that's where we have to push back because both of us are from Southwest Atlanta.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't get any more Atlanta than being from Southwest. You know what I'm saying? Like MLK, Lyndhurst, Cascade,
Venetia Hills.
There you go, Venetia Hills. Yeah. And so when we talk about that, I think that's important for a judge to have that kind of perspective. Absolutely. Because if you're from Atlanta, which is the most Fulton of Fulton County, it's important to have that perspective when people come before you and they have these situations, whether it be a divorce, whether it be an adoption, whether it be a criminal charge, whether it be some type of civil issue. And so, I mean, does that help you have a perspective on how your judicial philosophy will be?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm a firm believer that judges should not just see the community when the community comes into the courtroom. So judges need to be engaged with, involved in the community and have an understanding and really a thumb on the pulse of the community, understanding what's going on in the community. One of the examples that I use all the time is that I've never met a little kid who said they wanted to grow up to be a drug dealer.
That's true.
And so with that being said, what we need to understand is that there's a difference between those who commit crimes out of feelings of necessity, so to speak, and those who commit crimes for other reasons. And so when you are involved in the community and when you have some perspective, so to speak, it allows you to better understand, so to speak, the people who are coming before you. And that's not to say that you necessarily cut people breaks or, you're soft on crime or anything like that. But what I am saying is accountability is important. And what's very important is understanding that every single crime does not need to end in prison time. Every single crime does not need to end in long probationary periods. Here in Georgia, we are one of the top states as far as the most people on paper or on probation or parole. Right. And that impacts people on levels that people don't really even take into consideration. So not even from a job perspective, just quality of life perspective. I mean, there are so many things that you think about when somebody gets a sentence of 20 years to serve one with the balance on probation. So 19 years on probation, that's a lot.
That's 2 decades.
Yes,
that's a long time.
Yes. And that affects things, like I said, not only just job perspectives, but it affects quality of life on so many levels, like not even being able to leave the state without permission for valid reasons. And so I think we need judges who, like I said, who have some experience, who are able to draw on certain things. Like my brother, for instance, was falsely arrested. Mistaken identity. Person had the same name but completely different description. He spent 4 days in Rice Street, but for the fact he had a sister who was a lawyer at the time, and at the time I was a prosecutor, but for the fact, not in Fulton County, I was a prosecutor in Philly, but for the fact that he had a sister who knew how to navigate the system, his 4 days may have turned into something else. Now on the other side of that, I have a law enforcement background as far as my family. My father was a police officer. I have several uncles who are either police officers, GBI agents, FBI. One of my cousins is an FBI agent. So I have both sides of it, of course. And like so many of our people, I have family members who have had some interactions with the system. Yes,
we both have. we both have people on both sides.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay. So let's kind of look into the crystal ball, look into the future.
Yes.
So day one, in the Honorable Shermela Williams' courtroom.
Absolutely.
What is that going to look like? Day one.
So day one, we are not going to have court. Day one, we are going to look at the docket, because what we also see in Fulton County is that we have a whole lot of people who have been sitting in custody for 6 months to a year, waiting on disposition. So their cases haven't even been heard. So when we talk about overcrowding of the jails, we've also got to talk about the fact that we've got to make sure that we are moving these cases efficiently and in a manner not only that the defendant's rights are being protected, but that the community and the safety of our streets are also being protected. And so you've got to be able, again, to strike that balance. We should not have people sitting in jail for over a year still waiting to come to court and get their matter disposed of. That's not fair to victims. That's not fair to defendants. And it's not fair to the community as a whole.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about voter turnout and how we engage the electorate. So, it's probably going to be high voter turnout. It's 2020, and everybody's engaged. They're talking about the top of the ticket. They're talking about the Senate races. They're talking about the primary. How do we engage South Fulton to be interested in a judge's race that's down the ballot?
So the unfortunate part is when we look at the concentration of crime in Fulton County, it tends to be Atlanta and South. Okay. And when I say Atlanta and South, I'm not including Chattahoochee Hills in that and South. Right?
Yeah.
and so,
shout out to Chattahoochee Hills.
Hello, Chattahoochee Hills. You vote too.
Yes.
You deserve to be protected. But when we look at the concentration of crime in Fulton County, it tends to be South Fulton County, Atlanta, East Point, College Park, those areas, and Hateville, forgive me if I'm leaving out a city. And so what we've got to do is understand that Milton and Johns Creek should not be the only cities in Fulton County that are voted safest cities in America. So there are 15 cities in Fulton County. And we need to make sure that we are putting in the work to ensure that all of Fulton County is safe, that all of Fulton County is getting what they need as far as not only services, but as far as accountability, as far as transparency in the courtroom, all of Fulton County, not just parts of Fulton County. So South Fulton County in particular needs to show up because, number one, I'm from South Fulton County. So I need you to show up and vote for your hometown girl. But in addition to that, because I am that person who will be on the bench, who will understand things from perspectives that are beyond just what I see in the courtroom.
Okay. And so I see a lot of your work that you're doing on Facebook. I see a lot of the engagement you're doing with the community. What do you think it's going to take to translate that into votes?
So I teach part-time at Spelman too. And last week, so the students are on spring break this upcoming week, but last week I wanted to have a conversation with them about voting and how to better engage them in the process and engage them and motivate them really to vote.
Okay.
And so they told me 3 specific things. One, they said that they don't think that government or voting rather really applies to them. It doesn't affect them, right? That's what they told me.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to unpack that in a minute. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. And so another thing they told me is that they don't necessarily care for the candidates who are running or know about the candidates who are running. Okay. And then the third thing they told me, of course, is what we generally hear all the time. Well, my vote doesn't matter. So going backwards on those, starting with number 3, my vote doesn't matter. I said to them, do you understand that 46% of registered voters did not vote in the last election?
Yeah, they took the day off.
Right. And we can't take the day off. I don't care what party you are. You can't take the day off because at the end of the day, your one vote in your mind doesn't count. But when your one vote is combined with his one vote, her one vote, it's the collective bargaining power of those one votes that decide elections. Okay.
And so let's talk about that. Let's unpack that. So in a Fulton County Superior Court race, what's usually the winning margin?
Well, see, judicial races are different because we have over 1 million citizens in Fulton County. However, in the last judicial race, it was like 50 to 70,000 people who voted. And that's a huge estimation when I'm saying that. And it's because I don't remember if the number was 50 or 60 or 70.
Yeah, I think it was about 55,000 was the number.
Yes.
And so I think to put it in perspective for the students of Spelman or the young people that may be listening to this podcast, 55,000 votes gets you a judge on the bench. 55. So when you say your vote doesn't matter, I know people who have 55,000 individuals on their Instagram, or 55,000 people that follow their Twitter. Now, granted, all those people are not in Georgia, but that's just to put it in perspective. And so when you start talking about my vote doesn't matter, you know, of course it does matter at the top of the ticket because, again, the electors are elected by the popular vote. So if you're going to get all the electors for Georgia for the presidential run, you have to win the popular vote here in Georgia. But on down the ballot, it's direct election. And so we're talking about that, how that affects in a judicial race. Now, let's shift to number 2. You said number 2 was?
So number 2 was the fact that they feel like they don't either know who the candidates are or they don't like the candidates.
And so in a judicial race, why would they not know the candidates? I mean, if you're at Spelman, at some point you're going to be in front of the Superior Court. At some point, it may be for jury duty, it may be, you know, some type of program. Lord forbid, you might get charged with something. You might have a civil action. So why would you think they don't know the candidates for judge?
And so let me also expand this. It's not just my students at Spelman who said this.
Of course, I know.
These are students who I also just meet in my everyday walk. Okay, and they had the same opinions, but for them, in their mind, what was said to me was, we don't know who's on the ballot. We don't necessarily know what they stand for. And then where do we go to even find out what these people stand for or what they're saying? And so what I explained to them was, and them being all students that I come into contact with on this point, it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we are an educated voter base, right?
Definitely.
And so it's incumbent upon us to make sure that before we show up to that ballot, that we know what's on the ballot. Now, you can go to the Secretary of State's website and pull off a sample ballot.
sos.ga.gov. .gov, which is the Secretary of State's website.
Absolutely. And not only will you see the candidates and the races that are on that ballot, but you'll also see any initiatives that may be on that ballot, referendums, changes to state or local law. All of that will be on the ballot, like HB 994.
HB 994.
Yeah. So, you may see things like that on the ballot. You can pull your sample ballot, see all of those
by
things.
county. You can pull it down the tab.
Correct, by county. You can pull that beforehand to see what's on the ballot and to really educate yourself on what's on the ballot, who's on the ballot, who am I voting for, and even just as simple as asking other people, hey, who are we voting for?
Exactly.
That's what happens oftentimes in my world. Somebody calls me in previous years and said, hey, who are we voting for?
I get that call all the time. Thousands of people call me and ask me who's on the ballot, and I have to put it on social media. But yeah, and so let's shift to number one. You said number one from the students at Spelman, but more importantly, the students in the community was
that it doesn't affect me.
Now let's talk about why an election for Superior Court affects people. Number one, the Superior Court judges are some of the most powerful individuals in the state. And that's because they control your freedom. They are the only people that determine whether or not, if you've been convicted of a crime, whether you're going to serve a life sentence or 20, 30 years in prison. Now, in death cases, the jury decides death. But for life sentences, that's the Superior Court.
Correct.
They're the only ones that determine custody.
Correct.
They're the only ones that determine, in certain instances, civil judgments.
Correct.
They're the only ones that deal with TPOs and permanent protective orders. So this actually comes down to the marrow of issues, not even the meat of the issue, the marrow in the bone of your everyday existence.
Absolutely. And even to add to what you said, when we think about even in the civil realm, something happens at the doctor and you feel like the doctor did something wrong, and you sue the doctor. Well, you can come before a state court or a superior court, but you bring that case because you've been injured or you feel like you've been wronged in some way. It's the superior court judges who are making those decisions, especially if you're not having a jury trial.
Exactly. So
bond, when we talk about bond.
Oh, definitely bond.
Yeah.
The way you're going to get out and get out of jail when you've merely been accused of something. I mean, these are absolutely fundamental rights. Searches and seizures.
Absolutely.
When we talk about, the police profile me, that's all superior court judge. And so I think that, the purpose of this podcast and other stuff on the internet is to educate individuals. And so back to the point number two, we don't know who's on the ballot. It's become very simple in the information age to find this stuff out.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's on the Secretary of State's website. And then the individuals who are running have their own websites, which I'll push you to ShermelaForJudge.com.
SHERMELA forjudge.com. I promise you, if you Google Shermela, there is one that will come up.
Yeah, one Shermela on Google. So Google
one
her.
Shermela.
But you can get the information at the click of a button on your phone. So from now on, for people to say, well, I don't know who's running, I don't know what they stand for, you can find them on the internet, on their websites, at their social media platforms, and you can find out the information very easily. And that's why I wanted to open the platform up to you so you can come in and have a conversation with people. And so, one of my biggest questions is that, again, on May the 19th, there's going to be an election.
Yes.
I want to know how you see this race shaping up for the majority of my listeners, which would be African Americans. They talk a lot about criminal justice reform. Yeah. They talk a lot about police profiling and police accountability and all of the things that are going on with discrimination and all kinds of things. How would this race affect those core issues?
Hugely. Okay. So when we talk about that from the aspect of, well, let's just look at some historical data. In Fulton County, there are 20 Superior Court judges. Currently, 7 of those 20 are Black or African American.
Okay.
Of those 7, 3 were appointed. Okay. So appointed means the governor appointed them. Yeah. Governor put them in place. A governor, I should say. Of those 3 appointees, 2 of them were appointed back in the 90s. So since the 90s, there has been 1 Superior Court judge of color appointed to the Fulton County bench. And Fulton County is about half and half when we think about the breakdown of black versus white. Okay? So that's one thing. Now, remember I told you there were 7. So what about those other 4? Because 3 were appointed. Those other 4, each of those other 4 ran and was elected by the people. So what does that mean? The data shows that in Fulton County, when people show up to vote, people of color win elections. When people of color show up to vote, people of color win elections, okay? And this is not a race issue. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is representation does matter. And so we cannot complain about how we don't have a judiciary that looks like us if we don't show up to put people in office because the political appointment system doesn't necessarily work for us.
Definitely. And so I want to kind of close this out and do a little role play, a little pretend. Okay. So I'm Demetrius at the barbershop.
Hey, Demetrius.
You know, I have been through the system. I've had my rights restored, but I'm just not motivated to get out and vote because, I mean, the system has never really helped me. But I meet Shermela for judge at my barbershop, and you have 20, now we'll give you a minute elevator speech to get me to come on out. I'm Demetrius. How you doing? I'm here at the barbershop.
Go. All right. Demetrius, my name is Shermela Williams, and I am running for Fulton County Superior Court Judge. Here's the reason why you should go out and vote for me. Number 1, I have balance, okay? When you look at my background, it's balance on the bench. I've represented criminal defendants. I've prosecuted criminal defendants. I understand that every single person comes into the courtroom as a person, not a file, not a case number, but a person. And so with that being said, it's important, Demetrius, that you come out and vote and let your voice be heard, because if you don't exercise your right to vote, you lose your right to complain.
There you go. It's been awesome again. That's why I had to have her on, because this message is going to all of Fulton County. Now, I know it's going to be thousands of people on the internet that listen to this, but I'm talking directly to the people in Fulton County. I hear it all the time when I'm walking through the streets. Mr. Griggs, we can't make a change. We can make a change.
Yes.
Because voting matters.
Absolutely.
I saw it on Friday when I was in Fulton County Superior Court, and we were talking to judges and they were handing out sentences. And now you have a candidate for judge that's on the platform that's telling you she wants your vote, that's giving you the background, that's giving you the reasons, and now you have all that information. And so what we're asking you to do on May the 19th is to make sure that not only you, but your homeboy, and your friend, and his baby mama.
Your mama and them too.
The mama them too. Everybody on Cascade, everybody on Camelton Road, everybody on Camp Creek. We need everybody on Headland and Delow. We need y'all to turn up and to show up.
Don't forget Roswell,
of course, Chattahoochee Hills, Milton. We need Alpharetta. We need everybody. Where's other places? Pineview. Yeah, all of them. We need everybody out. Roswell Road, all of y'all. We need you to make sure you go. Piedmont, I was just on Piedmont, Peachtree. Everybody at Lenox Mall, make sure you put down your credit card and go over there for a minute, and then you can go back. They'll still have the same deals online.
Now, Attorney Griggs, early voting starts April 27th.
That's where I was going. For those who don't want to vote on May the 19th, early voting, make sure you register, because registration for May the 19th would probably end on April. Yep, again, it's a month before election. And see, y'all ask me, how do I know all these things? Because I'm educating myself on the process. Because I'm tired of going into superior courts around the state and seeing judges that are not balanced, judges that are not as fair as they can be. I don't know too many unfair, because again, shameless plug, I am an attorney. So hopefully everybody's fair, but I need a next level of fairness. And so that's why I brought Shermela on. I want to give her the last few minutes to give you all her social media and how you can get in contact with her, and to make sure that you get out there, either early vote or that you vote on May the 19th. But Shermela, the floor is yours for your closing argument.
Thank you. All right. So thank you so much again for this opportunity. Thank you all, because I'm going to claim this and I'm going to put this into the atmosphere. Thank you all for showing up and showing out and being the agents of change. So thank you for showing up on April 27th throughout early voting, as well as on May 19th, and voting for Shermela, voting for balance on the bench, voting for change in Fulton, making May 19th epic by ensuring that we stand up and that we voice our concerns, voice our change, voice our opinions, right? And so with that being said, you may reach me at Shermela, Shermela, forjudge.com. On social media, it's Shermela for Judge on Facebook, Twitter, as well as on Instagram, or excuse me, my kids tell me I'm old. It's IG. Yeah, I'm not supposed to say Instagram. It's IG.
I know. You know how some of the young folks are. We call it Instagram.
Right.
Or the gram.
Right.
Y'all call it IG, but that's cool.
Right. And so with that being said, we need to make sure that we have judges on the bench who understand that every crime does not require prison time. However, there are some that do, and we need to make sure that we are being fair and even-handed in that and not over-criminalizing things, but also not under-criminalizing things too.
Well, we appreciate you offering yourself for public service, and we're going to go ahead and claim it. You are going to be victorious. We're going to have a victory party.
Absolutely.
The evening of, it's not even going to go into the morning. It's going to be the evening of May the 19th.
Yes.
You will be a Superior Court judge. And again, you heard it here first on Justicefighter Podcast, on the Justice Media Network. Please, please, please. And now I'm talking to my sisters, because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Black women vote.
Yes.
Please, 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 if you're listening to this on your car, if you're listening to this on your phone, please make sure you get your sorors, your homegirls, all the folks you went to school with that are registered to vote out to vote for Shermela for Judge. Early voting is April the 27th, and the official date to vote is May the 19th. Get them out there. Make sure we put this beautiful sister on the bench, and we make sure that we have balance on the bench. So again, this is Attorney Griggs, a Justice Fighter.
Did we tell him that I was a Delta?
Okay, so we gonna be real.
Delta Sigma Theta sorority show up.
We need all the Deltas to show up, because I know y'all show up. Bring all the other Divine Nine members. We need the brothers to show up. Alphas show up. We need the Kappas to show up. We need the Omegas to show up. I mean, as long as y'all not barking, show up and vote. We need the Sigmas to show up. There's another organization, IOTA something. Y'all show up too. Bring your founders too. They still around.
I did not participate in the shade.
Zetas, please show up. Everybody needs to show up and make sure we put balance on the bench. I'm serious, guys, because you guys always asking me, how can we make a change? You can make a change by voting for a judge that listens to all of the community and makes an informed decision on whether or not you get to keep your child, whether or not you need to keep your freedom, whether or not you get to keep your business. This is real, okay? I'm not just out here just talking. I've known this young lady for a long time. She's fair and balanced. So I'm putting the Justice Fighter stamp of approval. That doesn't come out a lot.
No.
Justice Fighter stamp of approval on Shermela for Judge. Please vote for her for Judge. And I will see you on the next episode of the Justice Fighter Podcast. This can be found on all podcast streaming services, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, all of them. And, of course, YouTube, Instagram, and, IG, and Twitter.
And let me say this. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being that conscious and that voice of the community, to be the voice for the weak.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I just try to make sure that I get this word out.
Yeah.
And in the spirit of our ancestors, Thurgood, Martin, and so many great alphas, W.B. Du Bois, and so many others, I have to give back.
Well, you know, it's International Women's Day, so I'm going to put you up there with Shirley Chisholm, too.
Oh, wow.
You unbought and unbothered.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm up there. You know, I mean, do y'all know who Shirley Chisholm is or was? I mean, so, yeah, it is International Women's Day. My hat's off to the sisters that have been holding movement down since we started movement. And so in that spirit, we need to move to the polls, and we need to vote like we've never voted before. Like John Lewis said, we have to vote like we've never voted before, because your life does depend on it. And for all of the trolls out there that are elevating their voice in nonsense, talking about voting doesn't matter, I want you to ask yourself a question. If you don't show up on May the 19th and the bench swings in a way that's not productive to you, don't come crying. Don't come saying why Pookie them got a life sentence for a dime bag. Don't come saying, oh, the system is unfair. The system is unfair because you didn't participate in the system. This is the only country in the world. I'm going to say this twice. It's the only country in the world where you can have a revolution at the ballot box. So make sure you get out and exercise your right, that most fundamental right that people fought and died for. But more importantly, that your kids need to make sure they stay safe. I'm not the type of person to say, vote because somebody died. No, vote because your life depends on it. They've already made the ultimate sacrifice for you to have this choice. So please vote. Make sure you listen to the Justicefighter Podcast. Make sure you vote for Shermela for judge. And make sure you share this message on all social media platforms. This is Justicefighter Attorney Gerald Griggs, and I approve this message.
This is Attorney Gerald Griggs of Justicefighter.
I don't think they ready for you, Attorney Griggs.
Justicefighter.